Once upon a time, in a small town where the sun rose bright and the rivers flowed sweet, there lived a man named Benjamin, but popularly called Mr. Benji by a lot of people. Mr. Benji was poor, so poor that his pockets were as empty as a dried up well. While other men wore fine clothes and spoke big words, Mr. Benji had no fancy words to share. You see, Mr. Benji couldn't read or write. He was the only man in the village who had never gone to school, and because of this, everyone looked down on him. Mr. Benji had a big family, a family so big it was like a field filled with flowers. He had 4 wives, each one more stubborn than the last, and 12 daughters as beautiful as moonlight. But even with his large family, Mr. Benji was alone. The villagers laughed at him whenever he walked by. "Look at Mr. Benji," they'd say, shaking their heads. "The man doesn't even know his letters. How foolish he must feel." Mr. Benji never answered back. He just kept his head down, his heart heavy, like a stone at the bottom of the river. And as he walked, he could feel their laughter chasing him like shadows in the sun. But what no one in the village knew was that Mr. Benji was keeping a big secret. He is in fact a billionaire, the richest man in the village. But he kept it from everyone because there's more to his wealth that not even his wives nor his daughters knew. You see, Mr. Benji's story is just getting started, and soon you'll realize why you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, because a poor man today might be your helper tomorrow. Now, when Mr. Benji reached his 60th year, trouble knocked on his door and he fell really, really ill. One day, he woke up and his hands felt as heavy as stones, his legs as stiff as dry branches. He tried to lift them, but they wouldn't budge. It was as if his own body had turned against him. Mr. Benji's family, seeing their father struggle, hurried to find healers. They went from one healer to another, carrying him on their backs like a sack of millet, hoping for a cure. The healers rubbed herbs on his skin, whispered chants, and gave him bitter roots to chew. But nothing worked, not even a drop of improvement. Mr. Benji's sickness only grew, spreading over him like dark clouds before a storm. As the days turned to weeks, his family grew weary. They spent all the money they had, but Mr. Benji lay there, weaker than before. His hands wouldn't move. His legs lay still. The sickness had taken him like a fish caught in a net, and his family's patience thinned like the last drops of water in a dry season. As Mr. Benji lay helpless, his family slowly turned their backs on him, one by one, like leaves falling from a tree in Hamatan. His wives looked at him with eyes full of regret, whispering to each other, "What a mistake we made marrying this useless man. We deserve better." Even his daughters, who were as beautiful as the stars in a clear night sky, had no respect for their father. They were the pride of the village, with their beauty catching the eyes of every rich man around. But when Mr. Benji tried to speak, to tell them right from wrong, they would roll their eyes and laugh. "Why should we listen to you?" they sneered. "What do you know? You're nothing but an illiterate old man. Go to school first before you tell us what to do." Their words stung Mr. Benji's heart like thorns, but he could do nothing. He lay there, watching his own family drift further away, treating him as if he were a burden, a shadow they wished would disappear. And so, Mr. Benji lay silent, his heart as heavy as a rock, left alone by the very family he had cared for all his life. Mr. Benji's sickness turned from bad to worse, swallowing him up like a dark storm. He lay there, unable to control his own body, wetting himself, soiling his clothes, but his daughters only laughed at him, mocking him in his misery. They didn't lift a finger to help. They didn't cook for him. didn't clean his clothes. They left him lying there, his clothes smelling foul, as if he were nothing more than a forgotten rag. It was only the kind neighbors who took pity on him. Every day, they would bring a small bowl of food, just once, and set it by his side. They didn't stay long. They had their own lives to tend to, but at least they showed kindness, a warmth that Mr. Benji's own family refused to give. And as if that wasn't enough, his daughters brought strange men home, filling the house with noise and laughter, paying no mind to their sick father lying nearby. They did whatever they wanted, dancing and drinking, laughing loudly in front of him, as though he were nothing more than a piece of furniture. And all Mr. Benji could do was lie there, trapped, watching his own family shatter his heart into 1,000 pieces. One bright afternoon, Mr. Benji's eldest daughter, proud and beautiful, walked into the house with a tall, rich man by her side. His name was Nicholas. He was handsome, with eyes as sharp as an eagle's and dressed in clothes finer than any the villagers had seen. She held her head high, thinking she had brought home the perfect man. But as soon as Nicholas stepped into the room and saw Mr. Benji lying there, weak and frail, he froze. His eyes widened, and without a second thought, he dropped to his knees and prostrated, bowing so low his forehead touched the ground. "Ah, Baba," he greeted with deep respect. "It is an honor to be in your presence." Mr. Benji's daughters gasped, their mouths open wide with shock. They had never seen anyone show their father such respect, especially not a rich man like Nicholas. In their minds, their father was nothing but a useless, sick old man. Yet here was Nicholas, bowing to him as if he were a king. The daughters stood speechless, their hearts pounding with confusion and wonder. As Nicholas rose from the floor, he looked around and noticed the stunned faces of Mr. Benji's daughters. Their eyes were wide, and their mouths hung open like fish out of water, unable to understand why this wealthy, respected man was bowing to their father. Nicholas turned to them and said, "Do you not know? Your father, Baba Benji, is my boss. He owns the largest gold mine in this village." The words fell like thunder in the room. The daughters' eyes grew even wider, and their hearts beat like drums. They looked at each other, trying to grasp what Nicholas was saying. "Our father?" one of them stammered, disbelief thick in her voice. "But he's just a poor sick man. How could he?" Nicholas shook his head, a small smile playing on his lips. "Your father may look simple, but he is wiser than any of us know. Years ago, he took a 5-year leave from the mine, putting me in charge as the manager. He trusted me to handle the business and be the face of the mine while he stayed here, unseen and unheard." Mr. Benji's daughters were left speechless, their minds spinning with the revelation. The man they had mocked, ignored and laughed at was, in truth, the richest man in the village. Their father was not the fool they had thought him to be. Nicholas sat down, his voice calm and steady, as he began to tell the daughters a story they had never heard. "You see," Nicholas began, "the men in this village may be educated, but their wealth comes from something much deeper, something buried beneath the soil." He paused, letting the words settle. "Gold." The daughters listened, their eyes wide with wonder and disbelief. "This village," Nicholas continued, "sits on a treasure trove of gold. Many men became wealthy because of it, but few know that the largest gold mine, the richest land, belongs to none other than your father, Baba Benji." The daughters gasped, looking at each other with disbelief. How could this be? Their father, the man they thought was the poorest, the man they looked down on, was the owner of the biggest treasure in the land. Nicholas nodded, seeing their shock. "Your father kept it a secret," he explained. He only had daughters, and he knew that wealth can bring danger. People would try to use his riches, try to sway his daughters for their own gain. So he chose to live quietly, hiding his fortune to protect you all. The daughters' faces grew pale. They had treated their father with scorn and disrespect, not knowing the sacrifices he had made, the secrets he had kept to keep them safe. Nicholas looked at the daughters, his eyes filled with a quiet sorrow. Your father, he began, his voice heavy, had a plan. One he kept to himself. He wanted to know who would stay by his side when he had nothing, who would care for him if times grew hard. So he decided to pretend he was sick. The daughters listened, shame creeping into their hearts like shadows. They looked down, remembering how they had treated their father, the man who had raised them, as if he were nothing. Your father thought, Nicola continued, that perhaps in his weakest moment his family would gather around him, support him and show him love. But one by one, everyone he cared for turned away. The room was silent, the air thick with regret. Nicholas's voice softened as he spoke. Not even his wife stayed. They left him, and you, his daughters, you laughed at him, mocked him while he lay there, hoping for a single hand to hold him, a single heart to care. The daughters felt their faces grow hot with shame, each memory of their cruel words coming back like arrows. They had laughed at their own father, thinking him worthless, never once guessing that he was testing them, that he was watching to see who would stand by him. But in his lowest moment, they had all failed him. News of Mr. Benji's true wealth spread through the village like wildfire. The people who had once laughed at him, who had called him a fool and looked down on him, now stood frozen in shock. Their whispers filled the air like the rustling of dry leaves, voices filled with disbelief and regret. How could we have been so blind? The villagers murmured. Mr. Benji, the richest man among us, living like the poorest. Mr. Benji's daughters felt their hearts sink like stones in deep water. Every laugh, every harsh word they had thrown at him came rushing back to their minds. They remembered the times they had turned away, mocked him, left him lying helpless and alone. His wives too felt the sharp sting of regret. They had walked away, thinking they deserved more, thinking Mr. Benji had nothing to offer. But now they saw the truth. They had lost everything. The life they could have lived, the comfort and joy they could have had all slipped away because they had turned their backs on the one who loved them most. The entire village felt the weight of their shame, but none felt it as heavily as Mr. Benji's own family. They had not just lost wealth, they had lost the trust, the warmth, and the love of a father who had been willing to give them everything. Mr. Benji, seeing the sorrow and regret in the faces of his daughters and wives, sat quietly, his heart heavy but clear. He had seen who truly cared for him in his darkest days, and he knew what he wanted to do with his wealth. Instead of giving his riches to the family that had abandoned him, Mr. Benji chose to honor those who had shown him kindness, those who had brought him food when he was sick, those who had offered a hand when he was alone. One by one, Mr. Benji called upon the villagers who had helped him. To the neighbors who brought him food each day, he gave sacks of rice, bags of yams, and coins that sparkled like the morning sun. To the children who would visit and sing for him, he gave clothes and toys and even a little gold. For every act of kindness, he returned it with gifts, blessing those who had blessed him. The villagers were filled with joy and gratitude, their hearts warm with the kindness of this man they had once overlooked. And so, Mr. Benji's wealth spread across the village, like rain nourishing a dry land, filling the hearts of those who had cared for him in his hardest times. In his final gathering with the villagers, Mr. Benji stood before them, his voice quiet but full of wisdom. He looked out at the faces around him, the faces of those who had helped him and those who had turned away. With a calm heart, he revealed the truth. "Dear friends," he began, "though I pretended to be sick at first, fate has now made it real. I have only 6 months left." A hush fell over the crowd, and his daughters began to weep, their faces wet with tears of regret. They knelt before him begging, "Father, please forgive us. We were blind. We didn't see your kindness, your strength. Please forgive us." But Mr. Benji only smiled, a gentle, weary smile. "My daughters," he said softly, "you have shown me your hearts. I have seen who you truly are. My love for you remains, but trust must be earned and respect must be given freely." With those words, Mr. Benji turned to those who had cared for him, who had stood by him without knowing his wealth. And so, in the company of those who had shown him true kindness, Mr. Benji spent his last days in peace. When he passed, the village remembered him not as a poor, uneducated man, but as a wise, generous soul who taught them that kindness and respect are worth more than gold. His story remained in their hearts like a guiding star, reminding them always to honor those who stand by them in times of need. I hope you enjoyed the tale. If so, please like the video, share it with your family and friends, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for more enchanting tales like this one. Goodbye.